Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Jorge Núñez.
Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this meeting. We have a very serious meeting this afternoon. It's late in the afternoon. Some of you want drinks, some of you want something else, but you have to focus and pay attention. You have to discuss the future of the budget. It's an important budget, and I need your brains to be here. We are really here to speak about the future of the budget, and it's about the political ambitions and realism. One would say, is it political objectives and paralysis? What is that we are facing? We are in front of a huge wave of different reforms. We have the budget review coming with many issues. We have a budget reform coming. We have an own resources proposal. Where is it going to lead? So that's why we're here, and we have an incredible panel. We have now His Excellency Luis Grech. He's the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of European Affairs of Malta, and this is the incoming presidency. And he's going to face very difficult budgetary discussions coming. So I'm very happy he's here, and I would like to hear his opinions. We have Kristalina Georgieva here. We all know her very well. She's currently the Vice President of Budget and Human Resources. I think that Twitter and Facebook is very fast for the discussions. I wish sometimes that letters would be still in place, so we would be just having a discussion without interference. But as it is, so it is. We have Jean Arthuis. He is the Chairman of the Budget Committee of the European Parliament. He's a great defender of the values of the EU and an interesting fighter on the rationale of the budget. So like Georgieva, I think these are very, very inspiring speakers from the two institutions, the Parliament and the Commission. We also have the permanent representative from Slovakia here, Peter Jarkovic, who also joins us to get into discussion, see the views maybe from the present presidency. How is it going to go forward? So let me start. I would like really to focus on one thing. I want to ask something. I really would like that this session here does what the question is. Post-2020 objective and what is realism. And I would like to ask our illustrious panel to focus on really on the philosophy. What do you want? What is the main issues that should stay in the budget? What do you see that as the key that you want to keep? What should stay, what should go? Is there something new that should be coming? Or are we facing another wall? What is it that you see, and what is what you want? I would like you to tell really what you're expecting for the future. We are citizens. There is the EU has many problems. There are many objectives. So there is the financial arm. What should we be doing? Where do we start? I mean, I would like to ask to please, His Excellency Luis Grech, please, could you please start with your vision of what you expect that will happen after everything goes together? What would you like to see for the future in this multi-annual financial framework?
First of all, I think it takes quite a special gift to balance reality with political ambitions. And I think it's quite a rare achievement to really deliver on that. Secondly, I don't think that it would be the right perspective to simply emphasize on the multi-financial framework and on the budget. I think this should be seen in terms of a wider context, the reality of Europe at the moment, and also the political aim of Europe at the moment. And basically, if we're going to take what is really the major, what I think is the major challenge that we face, whether it is in the budget, financial framework, is to restore the citizens' trust in the European project. And I think that is fundamental. At the moment, I think Europe is suffering from fatigue and lack of credibility. I think this deficit in credibility very often results from a deficit in implementation. And I think these are the two things that we should really focus in the next multi-financial framework. I believe that anything, any policy, any program, any framework should have as its basis the citizens' goals ultimately. And unless we're going to integrate the citizens' goals into European policy, whatever it is, whether it is the single market, whether it is in fact the financial framework, budgets, what have you, I don't think that would be going to be succeeding. I think the immediate priority is the fact that we have to sustain the European project. I think, and in order to sustain the European project, I think that we need to ensure that there is connectivity. Now, the way I see it, I'm in a bit of a disadvantage because I was budget rapporteur for some time, many years back, in European Parliament. And now I'm in Council, and that does, at times it leaves you a bit too conflicting interests. But the point is that ultimately, what we should look at is the fact that the citizen should be the fulcrum of whatever we're doing, whether with the budget or whether with, in fact, with any other program. And I see it as the major challenge that we're facing now is that we really interpret and deliver on what the citizens expect. If we're going to say a priority, obviously, I think the priorities for the citizen at the moment is to ensure that it is not a question of the priorities, to be frank, of the three institutions. It's their own priorities which we have to represent and because the single market, let's take the single market, is probably the best illustration of European unity. But on the other hand, European funds within the financial framework best illustrates the connectivity, at least in my experience in Malta, the connectivity between the citizen and the European Union. That's the only time, or the best time really, not the only time, that they really relate that they understand what the European Union is all about. Because otherwise, if you're going to take some kind of random survey, whether it is on the single market, most people get confused, and the European budget, they don't really understand what's happening. And I think we should be clear about that. In terms of, to conclude, in terms of what I think should be the priority, I think it should be immediately, first of all, I think we should, if we really want to restore citizens' faith in the European project, I don't think that the budget should go, we should close the 2017 budget now, before the new year. I think that is fundamental. If we're not able to achieve that, then they're going to think again. This is another process where the European institutions have failed. Even if, especially, and I think that our colleagues, the Slovak presidency is doing a lot on that, even on the review, it should be closed as early as possible, because ultimately, if we're going to have this is a test. It is a moment which is very, very vulnerable and fragile for the whole European Union. And I think that we cannot afford, for example, to disillusion the European citizen by having a budget which is supposedly between the three, they are not interested in the various positions of the three institutions. And if fundamentally we really want to address the major problem, is that we have to ensure that the European project is consolidated by getting back the European citizens' trust. I think that also it should be a flexible, multi-financial framework. Flexible in the sense that it should be rigid, yes. It should be predictable. It should work within parameters, but there should be an element of flexibility within it. It should be also, it should ensure that the mechanism is simplified even between, first of all, between the institutions, so that we have this annual problem of to decide on the budget, and then Christmas time, and I remember conciliation meetings right at the end. I think we should have something inbuilt in that which makes it more effective and more efficient. We should also ensure that cohesion, for example, for me, is important that it is retained. I have nothing against other financial instruments, but I think there should be a balance between grants and financial instruments. Simplification, and I think Vice President Georgieva is working very hard on that. I think simplification is also something, but the ultimate thing is really we need a budget which should have a European value added, but ultimately it should also be balanced with a citizen's value added. I think ultimately it's the quality of life of the citizens which really is paramount in this whole exercise.
Thank you. This is quite a clear vision of having the citizens in the center. And I would like to ask our Vice President, Kristalina Georgieva, you have been a very inspiring commissioner. I found that your work has been extremely inspiring until now, one of the most dynamic budget commissioners with vision and drive that many are very jealous to have something like this. And I wish that every commissioner was like that. I would like to know now that you have been working non-stop to try to bring the budget, to modernize it, to simplify it, to look at results and to communicate it. So you see this work, you have been in there. How do you think, are we going to get there? And what is your vision? Effectively, what do you want to see at the end of this program? We have, I think that we have a tsunami, and we may treat it as a wave. But for me, this is a danger. So what do you think? I would like to know what would be your hope for the budget? Please.
My hope for the budget is to be there. So we have our next financial perspective, and we continue to have the budget as the fuel for our engine so it can continue to go forward. Well, you put in the beginning a very good set of questions. What do we have? What we want to keep? What we want to change? And what should be the end? Well, it's not going to be ever the end of the road, but where should we get? I don't know whether some of you have been at the conference in Amsterdam on the future of the budget. How many of you were in Amsterdam? Well, it's a good part. Half. Okay. In Amsterdam, I talked about what we have in the following way, that currently we have an equilibrium of friends of cohesion, friends of agriculture, and friends of rebate. And this equilibrium is actually allowing us to have financial peace. We now know that Brexit is shaking up the friends of rebate group. So even if there is no other reason but that, this equilibrium will have to change. And when we look at this process of change, I would say what we want to protect as we go towards a new equilibrium is this sense that the European budget is there to create conditions for Europe to be lifted up. In other words, cohesion funds, they are often very severely criticized, but we now have the evaluation for 2007-2013. it tells us that €1 in cohesion has generated over €4 of GDP. It has helped regions falling behind and countries falling behind to be lifted up. That kind of using the budget to generate more equality in development in Europe is a valuable thing. Agriculture, there are lots of people who criticize the agricultural spending, the common agriculture policy. And yet, for people who come from outside of Europe and go around by train, by car, they're always very impressed by our landscape, by our rural environment. They're impressed by the fact that we actually have our communities everywhere. So I remember recently driving with friends from the US, and they look, so we're driving on a little road in Belgium, they look around and they see all these cows in small slots. They say, oh, this is beautiful. Not only it is beautiful, it is actually more environmentally sound, and it provides for Europe conditions for producing healthy food. However, we also know that there are many problems in the agriculture, in the common agriculture policy. Some of them have been resolved, some of them are not. I'm not going to get into this. But my point here is that this is the thing I want to protect in the future. The EU budget is an investment budget first and foremost. And that I want us to protect. And then comes the question, what do we want to change? And I would put my change marker on 3 big things. One, we do have to bring in our equilibrium of friends a group that is friends of European value added. We should be funding with the budget things that are by definition better delivering because we fund them from the EU budget and not from national budgets. And we have to have the discipline of defining criteria, parameters, and then fund these things. Today, some would be easily justified, others won't, and this group of friends of European value added is actually the group of friends of the citizens, because if we do genuinely investment at EU level that is better done at EU level than at national level, and it creates this value added, then we of course are serving the citizens better. The second thing I believe it is very important to change, and we have already heard about it, is the agility of the budget. We cannot possibly, in a world that is changing so rapidly, have a budget that is spelled out in excruciating details for 7 years in a row. Because then we would find ourselves first restricted to act quickly to respond to a new priority, and second, continuing to fund something that may actually be outdated and should not be there anymore. Third, when we think of and of course when I talk about agility, I would put here also the issue of simplification of the rules. How can you have an agile budget when Mr. Artui would say, for a tiny little project you have, how many were there, 140 documents?
Many.
Okay, many.
Too much. Too many.
Too many. And the third thing that we are already changing, and we will have to pursue relentlessly to change, is to bring that sense of accountability in financial terms with accountability for results and impact on equal footing. For far too long, we were more obsessed with, do we follow the rules? And that, of course, links to the absence of simplification, rather than what is it we get for the money in the end of the day when we follow the rules. we talk about walking on two legs, performance and compliance, financial accountability. And these two legs today are still not equal. The compliance leg is long and the performance leg is short. So performance limps. We have to put the two legs to be equally long. Mr. Artui has on his phone a picture of a road. He took this picture traveling, and it's a very telling picture. It's a beautiful, perfect road. I'm sure it is done in full compliance with the rules, except that it goes nowhere. That we cannot possibly have in the future. Why? Because demand for what we do has gone up tremendously, and we are not going to see equally fast increase of budgets. But I would not be fair to your question if I don't say the following, because you and I have been working on this topic of own resources. I also dream of a budget in which we bring the citizen closer to what is being funded also on the revenue side. There is the Monti Group on own resources. It is going to come up with a set of recommendations. By the way, GNI contributions also they have their own pluses. I'm not discounting those, but can we create a budget in which revenues and expenditures are reformed simultaneously? And then we have a budget that is a modern budget, functional budget, agile budget, one that delivers on performance much more than in the past. I, for one, am actually optimistic. I have seen over the last years a shift in how we think about the budget, how we use the budget, how we engage on the budget. I have seen much more attention to the citizens, much more thinking, how can we get bottom-up allocation, how we can get bottom-up controls, how we can make it possible through transparency, you know, our app where we put all the projects, how we can give the citizens a chance to be in charge of the EU budget. And this shift can continue provided that we all have the will to go from the old equilibrium to the new equilibrium. And I look at some familiar faces of people who are going to be in the kitchen on this new equilibrium. What I notice with great satisfaction, they are smiling. So I would finish with, yes, we can.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now we'll have to think about, you have put all of it, apart from value added, you said modern, functional, and agile. And I would say to politicians, you want your sports team in the Olympics to be modern, functional, and agile. So think about the budget. Get it like a sports team that performs. I would like now to go to our next speaker. The chairman of the budget committee, Mr. Jean Arthuis, you have the floor. Question is very similar. Is how do you see in particular, what do you expect from the budget, and what do you see the problem is, but what do you want, and what do you actually fear, looking at what's going to come? Floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Slovak presidency. I am so pleased to participate in the TATRA summit. It is not, in fact, my first conference on the EU budget. I was in Amsterdam in January 2014. And we were under the Dutch presidency. The statements of all ministers were highly realistic and encouraging. They agreed on at least 3 points. First, MFF is not suited for the EU challenges. Two, we need to do something about it. Three, we want to focus on European added value and performance. As a consequence, the MFF revision is on the table. The Commission is ready. The Commission has tabled its proposal. The Parliament is ready. The Council still wondering whether we need it. The Council is like Saint Augustine, the Christian thinker. Lord, make me better, but not yet. Meanwhile, summit after summit, heads of state or government agree upon promises and announcements, piling up on climate, migration, youth unemployment. But the EU is given neither the budgetary nor the political means to achieve them. For now, we have to revise the MFF 2014-2020, which is rigid and anachronistic, deprived to address the crisis. MFF revision is no revolution. The Commission is only proposing to use the budget to the fullest. Imagine 1% of the European GDP, and still we manage not to use it all. As Nunez Ferrer wrote, the image of the EU budget is very poor at the moment. But the image of the EU as a whole is very poor, and so is the image of the governments, except Slovakian and some others. I have been elected member of European Parliament 2 years ago. My impression is that we have a travesty of Europe, an appearance of Europe, the appearance of a budget. The Union is expected to act as if it had competencies it doesn't really have. Member States act as if they retain competences they don't really have anymore because of globalization and successive crises. Let us be careful. The risk of frustration and unpopularity is mounting. The main question is, what is a budget? A budget is a translation of a common vision, a common ambition into sums and figures based on a fair assessment of expenditures and revenue, considering the capacity of taxpayers. The problem is that EU heads of state or government lack ambitions and unity, and they expect that an extremely constrained EU budget will do the trick. That being said, what to do with the EU budget? Immediately, deliver quickly on MFF revision. It is the least we can do. Crisis will not go away just by refusing to create the crisis reserve that the Commission is preparing. We need flexibility. If we don't start adopting our budget right now, we will enlarge the budget galaxy. The FSI, the trust funds for Syria, for Africa, the budgetary facility, the ASM, many satellites which are no longer under the control of Parliament. Such a divert undermines legitimacy and political effectiveness. After a courageous and prompt MFF revision, we have to frame the next MFF for the future beyond 2020. CAP should be revised to provide stability, predictability to farmers. Cohesion funds will continue to respond to solidarity expectation between member states. Such funds are threatened by complexity of financial rules and bureaucracy, and we have certainly to simplify hardly. The main point is to identify the European public goods. I am pleased to remember the declaration this afternoon of Wolfgang Schäuble and Pier Carlo Padoan. Migration, that means control of common borders. That means funding coast guards and border guards. Foreign affairs, security and defense, I suppose that means common intelligence services, employment, education, that means more funding for Erasmus, encouraging apprenticeship to tackle the youth unemployment. We have to demonstrate the added value for each public good. And member states will transfer the funding. This will provide more efficiency, and globally, this will also be source of saving. To conclude, we all agree the budget needs, we all agree the needs have to be fixed. Let's fix it. It is the pledge for our confidence in the future of European Union. I thank you for this conference because it is a kind of group therapy. So we have now to rescue the patient. Thank you.
You have done a very precise, very good speech with everything, but I have to tell you, you have to listen to him in French. It's I told you I would have liked to hear you. He's so powerful. Don't underestimate him. And I would like to speak French like he speaks English. I don't manage. I'm really, but when you speak, you're powerful. I want to say it because you really are tough guy. So next, I would like to ask now. We have the permanent representative for Slovakia, Peter Javorčík. I hope I said it correctly. You are here. You are involved. You are the intermediary, maybe between the government and the institutions, and you see. You are the one that has to handle things. What is your view of? I don't want to ask you how easy your job is or not, but more is what would you see that is coming, and how would you respond to these views? And do you see some hurdle or something that can be removed? And what is your hope now that you're in the presidency? What do you expect to happen after this presidency? How do you see it being involved in all of this?
Yes, thank you, and I can assure you that we don't underestimate the chairman of the budget committee, Mr. Artui, because we have had also important, difficult but important, but I think constructive negotiations ahead of us. And I'm referring, to the immediate task of the presidency, which is now to have agreement on the annual budget 2017. We have on the table midterm revision, and in the coming weeks, actually, it will be once again, a hot topic in Brussels, because there are some deadlines and we should deliver by mid of November. And I hope that together with Commissioner Georgieva, Chairman of the Budget Committee and the Presidency, but also as a Council as such, we will do that, and I fully subscribe to the words by Deputy Prime Minister Greg that I think we need as a union to have a budget for 2017. Because otherwise, yeah, again, crisis which I think might be unnecessary, and we need to have, at least in the budgetary terms, some stability at the European level to fund the good causes, and many of them were named. You know, the question is about the vision of the budget. I think that many reflections here were about rather ideal budget. That would be nice, and I think that we can agree very quickly what's ideal budget. The question for me is what should be the best budget with the available resources. Of course, there is a question, does it mean available resources? We can have a bit more or a bit less, but also within that framework to really create the best budget. You ask what is the situation or how we assess the situation. I recall when we started to talk about the last MFF, 2011, I think the proposal was done. I would say at that time, more or less we knew where we will land at the end. Friends of cohesion, friends of better spending, friends of agriculture. And at the end, more or less we got a deal, or as Madam Vice President said, some kind of equilibrium. But it was, even during the times of the financial crisis, still rather easy times comparing what we are facing now. And when I compare the situation now, and the Commission will come up with the MFF proposal next year, challenges are bigger, that's clear. Migration, security issues, also neighborhood is burning, and I think that it's appropriate to address it from the European level more than before. And here I think that in the Council, but also in the Parliament, we agree on the new priorities. That's what we call in Brussels language heading 3 and heading 4, which means, yes, we need to invest more in migration policy, security issues, but also with our external relations, in particular with the countries which are around us. So there is an agreement on that, but how we will translate it in the budgetary framework is a different story. There is also a big challenge, it's Brexit, and it was mentioned here. Parameters are not known now, when it will take place, what will be the conditions, what will be the effect on the budget. At the end, we might find a very quickly answer when we know these basic parameters about the timing and what will be the future engagement of the UK in the EU, whether they will be some contribution or it will be zero, going back as a really external partner. But that's on the side of the accounting. I think that we can do that. But also there is important effect, what kind of impact the Brexit will have on the budgetary negotiations, how this equilibrium will be changed. And that's also a big unknown. And I can already see, for example, when we start to have the debate in the Council, that also the dynamics within the net payers group is moving, because it's not just about British rebate, it's about the rebates for other 4 countries. So we are entering quite a different, let's say, political environment while we'll be discussing next post-2020 budget. So whether it will be enough to really have profound changes of the MFF, I don't think that we have a clear answer. It will be rather for the Commission next year to assess it and to come up with maybe a bit bolder proposals than we seen last time. Unfortunately, it won't be under Vice President leadership, but I think that the Commission will develop quite a good proposal upon which we can, as the Member States and the Parliament, build upon. As I said, it's a matter of size as well, and Brexit, whether we like it or not, will mean that the budget in absolute terms will be less. Other question in relative terms, whether GNI percentage will be the same, or we will go higher, or there will be again drive even to have a lower budget. That's also questionable, and it's really difficult to assess the political environment in which we are. So many unknowns for the time being. It's good that we're already starting this discussion. But next month will be quite critical also in designing the first proposals of the Commission. Maybe last word from my side on the cohesion policy, because I don't now have a presidency hat on my on my head, but rather really try to focus from the national position. Really to stress that we find that the cohesion policy is still a relevant policy for the Union. It's about the social economic convergence within the Union that's still clearly needed, but it's about the convergence among the member states. And I think that here we have, and we see some positive results. Not across the board. Countries are using their cohesion funds, maybe one better, others less better, but also within the countries. And here also there is quite a shaky, let's say, sometimes evidence that the regional disparities within the member states are not disappearing that much. And that's not only the issue of the economics, but also politics, because you find out that many regions which are undeveloped are also Eurosceptic. So we need to pay attention also to that. So just to conclude, yes, the cohesion policy has to be reformed again. A lot of things were done already in this financial perspective. We need to continue, okay, also to use the financial instruments probably more, but also wisely. And also to use the cohesion policy for real modernization of the countries. Of course, if there is and needs to be stronger link to the reform processes, be it like that. That's I would say also should be the approach from the cohesion countries in the future negotiations. So thank you.
Well, thank you. From what I see, you're discussing what is happening and also defending cohesion, which, by the way, we had workshops before. Workshop that said, depending on what we do with the budget, and we showed the maps, Europe looks differently depending on how you actually do cohesion or not. So there is on how you distribute the funding, there are different options for the future of Europe, and we have to think about it. It's not just you cut or not, and things will be the same. So I'm coming into this. The other issues that comes, and they were all, people are worried, and we heard it also on the initial panel today. We have 4 ministers, and one of the discussion was that the more you wait when you have a problem to actually solve it, the more expensive it becomes. So is it really a need to wait anymore? And then we're saying, yeah, we have many problems, but as our Vice President said, yes, we can, and maybe we should always think about that, yes, we can. So I'm going to do that is, you know, some issues came out, and it's, for example, the issue about finance differently. For example, one person offered a change in the cap. It's not because it was in the paper I wrote, but he actually said it. And a lot of questions came about. I've seen some of these are details. And then Brexit, yes, it happened, but we can survive it, I think. And now will come the moment where I'm going to say, one of the questions was the cap, but I will also want, apart from this question, to take some questions. It's the time for the public, the time for you to intervene. And also to intervene people with the TATRA summit application. You can send questions. People online can send questions, if I'm correct. I know my daughter is watching, but you shouldn't be sending questions. But you can all communicate, and please, let's start. Who has a question? We'll take 3 questions. I already made 1, the cap co-financing, but another 2. Who is, any hands, anybody burning question? Otherwise, I will ask the cap, and then I come back when you have thought about one. Burning. There must be some good question somewhere. You have, there.
Is it?
Very good.
Thanks. Helen Derbyshire from Access Info Europe. Just listening to this panel and having heard comments both on the panel about concerns about trust and during the course of this day about Euroscepticism, disillusion from the wider public in the European political class, I just wonder, in the preparation for the next round of budget negotiations, what measures have you thought about to actually have a more participatory process which reaches out and involves and listens to the wider European public? Thank you.
I think you did a very powerful question, but I should give it to her. This is, let's start with that. I mean, you can think about co-financing nearly something else, but actually, this is very important. how do you make it more participatory? I think I would really like to hear your, forget agricultural policy will come and be negotiated, but how do you make it more participatory? Who wants to start? You, Vice President Pistorino, please.
We are actually wrestling with this question right now because we cannot wait for 2020 to make the budget more participatory. And there are three things we are pushing very hard for. One is simplicity of disclosure of where the EU budget goes. We have created an app. You can actually download it on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, EU Budget for Results. When you click on it, it opens up a map and you can go to your city, your village, and find what is there. And then click who is responsible, how much money is put in. I'm a very big believer that transparency and simplicity of access to information are the citizens' best friends. We are not there yet in this being easily populated because our systems of placing projects in databases are not yet completely coherent. We are one of the most transparent places on the planet in terms of putting information out. But we are also the noisiest place because it is in so many different configurations, it's so difficult to sort it out, that if I'm a citizen, I would say, yeah, I tried, I searched, couldn't find, so this must be a poorly spent budget. We are going to, and I'm looking at Andres, by what time are we going to have all the systems talking to each other? We had that discussed recently.
Be careful what you say.
So 2018, it will take some time, and I want you to understand that it's not so easy. There are millions of projects funded by the EU, and to have them to be kind of populating easily, to be clicked on easily, this is not a trivial task, but we would get there. The second thing we are doing already is to say, can we have in our programs and projects citizens' participation bottom-up of selecting what the money should go for? Now, I'm sure people heard about the Wi-Fi idea, and I know that lots of people are saying, oh, no, cannot be done, bad idea. You know what is the Wi-Fi idea? That there would be in every city and village in Europe a public place where there is free Wi-Fi everywhere. And, you know, the question then becomes, who decides where the free Wi-Fi should be? And my take on that, it should be the people in the village, in the city. They should say, we want it at the train station, or we want it in the library, or we want it at the central square, we want it in the hotels. And we have to be able to then do that selection. And we are looking at our programs right now. We are discussing with colleagues, where are the programs where there may be an angle for bringing people in, and we have not done it. Just because our programs are, to be quite fair, kind of top-down. You know, we get the national envelopes, and then they translate into programs and projects. And the third thing that is becoming the question to sort of answer is how to get the social media to be more interested in the project next door. My worry remains that we have a much bigger bear to wrestle with. And this is the trap we have fallen in over the last years of overlapping crises, to blame each other, the blame game. And what the blame game does to us is member states say, we make great decisions and these bad institutions don't implement them. And unfortunately, I would admit, occasionally we in the institutions fall in the same trap, and we say, we have thought the best thought, but member states are not implementing. Why is this related to this question of engaging the public, because in that blame game process, the incentive to member states to recognize the contribution of Europe has gone down. Remember, during Brexit, there was this telling TV forecast of a man being interviewed, a Brexiteer, somebody who wants to leave the European Union, in front of a sign, and the sign says, funded by the European Union. So the guy is asked, why do you want to leave? And he says, what has Europe ever done for us? And the interviewer turns to him and says, well, you know, look at this, it actually created jobs for you here. And he kind of looks at it, oh, huh. So that what, you, huh. We cannot possibly turn the citizens around. We cannot answer your question unless we bury the hatches of the blame war. And if I have a dream for us in Europe, it is actually the simplest of all dreams. We looked for the enemy, and it was us. We poking each other in the eye. We are creating that sense among our people that we do not have the unity of purpose that takes their interest at heart. And if we overcome this, if we manage to get into the discipline of we are all together, there is this wonderful saying, your end of the boat is sinking. We are all in the same boat, and we have to paddle together. And then I think good things would happen.
Oh, thank you for an extensive answer. You have gone into a dream of not poking each other in the eye. But we are looking forward with effectively Brexit came out. This is going to be very, very difficult. But it is, the other thing that comes from the workshop is, you just mentioned value added. And actually the Wi-Fi came, and we could not agree if it was value added or not for Europe. It's, you know, the other thing comes, are the citizens always right with what they want? Because sometimes they want things that are very local. So this is going to be a difficult task, very, very difficult task. But we need to think about value added. I have to...
Can I just say something? I agree with you, and actually on the free Wi-Fi, if the citizens say, get lost, we don't want it, this is what the citizens are telling us, this is what we do. So there has to be also the no option for citizens. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. We will get now very soon messages coming out in a little while. So will arrive. We have lots of messages of hearing. But I would like, again, to go back to the public. I'm sure you must have questions, even if you're tired. Maybe many of you are sitting in negotiations, are a dangerous place to be, to put questions. But please, we have a question.
Thank you. Henry Foy, Financial Times. Forgive me, I'm going to do my job. Ms. Georgieva, I have to ask, could you give us a few more details of your reasons as to why you're leaving the European Commission? And also, could you comment specifically on the charge that your relationship with Martin Selmayr may have had an influence on that decision?
I have worked for 7 years in the Commission, and it has been a wonderful time. I love being Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid, and I felt extremely privileged to do budget and human resources over these 2 years. There is now an offer, after 7 years working in the Commission, for me to be able to go back to what is deeply at the bottom of my heart, development, and actually serve Europe from there as well. Because if you look at our problems today in Europe, big chunk of them come because parts of the world are in trouble, very close to us. I have been in, throughout this period of time, in great collegial relations, but of course, with everybody I work with, and I have colleagues here that work with me, every so often we may disagree on issues. And I'm well known to stand up for my views, but also accept to be wrong. That applies to everybody, that applies to Martin Selmayr. Categorically, I'm not leaving. Actually, those who know me, they would be very surprised if I'm to ever leave a task because of any one individual. So that's my answer to you. I'm actually very sad to leave. I have been reflecting on that, and then I thought, well, there is a call to service from a place that I love. And I also will finish my negotiations with my partners here. And I hope when we finish them well, even if they're not so happy for me to go, they'll forgive me.
But you you promised to stay until the conclusion.
That's December, no?
And
I now, as a good economist, I would say, Mr. Artui, it is very dangerous to get on that road, because then I may be creating an incentive for you to never finish the midterm review. So, but I mean, I think we need to return to,
Yes.
to the budget.
we started the first trialogue
Yes.
with Mr. Hudak. And Mr. Hudak left to join the EIB.
Anyway.
But
Yeah.
we will complete
Yes.
the negotiation with you.
Yeah, I actually,
So we don't know when you will be in a situation to leave.
I think a more interesting question is now the talk in the corridor is, well, Mr. Hudak went to the European Investment Bank. Ms. Georgieva is going to go to the World Bank. To which destination is Mr. Artui going to go?
I promise to stay.
So he's leaving. Now let's. Anyway, that's what they always say with politicians. When they say they're staying, don't trust. They are not running for something. Don't trust. No, I hope. I believe you. But now let's go. We have been very active on social media. Remember the hashtag that when you put is GTS16 for Global TATRA Summit 16. We will show you now on the screen some of your comments that are appearing behind me. You can see. So this is, so if you, whoops, always my ear thing disappears and then I don't hear what they're telling me to do. No. Stress loss, yes. I see here that we have a message. It is a great loss, I have to say. Kristalina, I have been very impressed. From the other side, you're totally right. The European Union, despite of all our bad opinions about it, is one of the safest places on the planet at the moment. So we can try to destroy it, undermine it, and so on, and bring it to the same level of the rest of the world, but it is one of the safest. And the biggest problems are where you're going. I fully agree. And if your heart is there, and I fully understand it. But I wished that the next commissioner follows the same machine that you started. I really do. And congratulations for everything you achieved until now, which was very impressive, in any case. So you deserve a round of applause, but I will wait until we finish this, because otherwise there is no time. I want to know if there is some question which is not related directly on her leaving, but on the budget, and to one of our panelists, something else. There we have a question.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Dirk Rahn. I'm from the Federal Ministry of Finance. And first of all, congratulations. And you told us stop name calling. And you said at the second occasion, I've heard it, that there is a group called the Friends of Rebate. And I haven't heard of this group before. I think it's your invention. Yeah? And I would, because there is a group, the group of like-mindeds, and there's a group of friends of better spending, but there is no group of rebates. There's only one group who pays more into the EU budget that they actually get out. Yeah? These are the like-minded group. And there's a Christian saying, thank you, dear God, that I can give from my wealth to other people. Yeah, so this is, I think these are the real Europeans. I have one question, one specific question. The MFF, and we are talking about the post-2020 MFF, it's roughly 1% of GNI. If we leave, if Great Britain will leave the European Union, 17% of GNI is missing then. So we have to cut the budget. And my question is, you said it's already clear we have to increase heading 3, so protection of internal borders, external borders, and we have to increase heading 4, we have to help other countries. Where shall the cuts take place? In which headings? That's my question.
Thank you for your question. First, when I say friends of rebate, I do not mean a group of friends of rebate. I mean that in the agreement on budget, rebates play a part for this agreement to be reached. And it is a set of countries that are aligned around that aspect. Not a significant topic to get into. Much more interesting is your actual question, which is what happens with the budget with UK not being in, and how we go about funding priorities that are shifting over time. To the first question, with the caveat that the contribution of the UK to the budget is not equal to the size of the UK and its share in the EU economy. Mrs. Thatcher has been was a good negotiator, so she negotiated the contribution of the UK that is actually, in relative terms, smaller than the size of the UK in the EU economy. But nonetheless, this is a big country, and this is a sizable contribution. It's somewhere 7 billion on net basis, around that amount. I would today not speculate what would happen with that particular engagement, because we do not know what the UK intends to do, whether they want to be contributing to some parts of the programs or not, whether they want to completely leave or retain some access to the internal market, and that would define what is the UK's engagement in budgetary terms. That would come in the future. What I do recognize, in other words, would the budget be smaller, would it not be smaller, that I'm not going to speculate today. But you're right with the second part of your question. Even if it is to be the same budget, even if to be a little bigger, the priorities that are, well, or smaller, but the priorities that are pressing us, well, there are some words that make people really happy. Bigger makes some people happy, and smaller makes other people happy. The issue here is that you're absolutely right. There are new priorities, and we have to be able to respond in the future, today and in the future, better to these new priorities. What it means, in my view, are two adjustments to be made. One, we have to be able to do more things with €1 that we used to do before. In other words, we have to be able to deploy the budget to achieve more than one single objective. For example, I give this example because we have done it. It's a small thing, but it's very telling. When we had the milk crisis last year, we gave 30 million euros to the World Food Programme to buy milk from our farmers. So you help the refugee kids in camps to have milk, but you also help European farmers to sell their products at reasonable price. When we think of cohesion, when we think of agriculture, when we think of our investments, we have to have a 180 horizon, and say, what can we do? How can we have a higher impact? Could infrastructure be built or housing be built that allows a community that is hosting refugees to do it, but also generates jobs for local business for local companies and jobs for local people? Can we think of our funding vis-a-vis the multiple priorities we are facing? Can we be more effective in using the money? The second adjustment is what instruments we deploy. I know this is a huge topic, but at the bottom of it is we should be using grants when grants are the appropriate instrument. We should be using loans when loans are the appropriate instrument, or guarantees. And then if you use if we use the budget more effectively, then we actually would have it to go further. And then we can cope with more demands on the budget. And of course, I would go back to my original point. The lines across different categories, they have to be a little more elastic lines. We cannot cement the budget in a way that makes it impossible when we are under the gun to respond.
I would like to say we have very little time. I want to ask you, as a last thing, just as a closing statement. I want a closing statement. I'm really going to ask you, if you have one thing to say, one thing you're going to do now in the coming. I would say, in your case, is what you would have done if you stayed, what do you expect the commissioner to do? What can you do? Or what do you wish that also politicians do? What is the one thing in a short, imagine someone asks you in one sentence, what do you think has to be done, and your responsibility, how do you bring it from your point of view? What are you going to do to bring this forward? Just quickly, as a final statement of encouraging that things will be possible. Yes, we can. So first, I will start with Mr. Two. We just go in a line.
Okay. We are in globalization, and we have to open a public debate with European citizens, because the problem of European Union is that it doesn't speak to citizens. And we have to explain that the problem of the budget is not to expand much more. The problem is more efficiency. And we have to question, are the member states efficient in some competences, such as defense, such as fight against tax events, against control of outside borders, against terrorism, against major sovereignty prerogatives. If we consider that we will be more efficient because member states are no longer in a position to have an effective power, we transfer to union. That means we transfer the funding, and maybe we will have saving of public expenditures and more efficiency. I think it is now necessary to open the debate and speak to European citizens. Otherwise, we will continue with an appearance of Europe, and in many circumstances, due to crisis, we gave a picture of unpower. We can't continue that way. We have a necessity of public communication to explain the challenges we have to address now in globalization.
Okay, so you're going to fight for a better, more effective budget and show the people you can save. That's an important message. Let's to the next.
converting, when I was Budgets Committee, I was following St. Thomas Aquinas. Then when I became council, I was converted to St. Augustine. So basically, I think that my main achievement that I would like to see delivered is that we do require a fine balancing act. A balancing act between flexibility, which is not so loose as to not make any sense of a union, not so loosely termed. At the same time, we cannot afford intransigent flexibility, intransigent rigidity that makes it very difficult for the integrative process of the European Union. So I think we should really consolidate and function, if we really believe in the European project, on restoring the citizens' trust and citizens' confidence. And I think we can do that by really implementing what we really deliver. And then would be addressing the deficit and the lack of confidence that we are experiencing now by the European citizens.
So citizens' trust again, which goes together, I think, goes very close.
Well, my wish to my successor is to bring forward the most credible, well thought through budget proposal that stretches the envelope, it has imagination but doesn't break the envelope, carries everybody forward.
Thank you. That was very concise. Now, last few words.
Yeah, I try to
very
match
short.
this consistency. No, I have to say that I don't believe in miracles in terms of budget. So that, in other words, when it comes to the MFF discussions, that there will be much more money. So I think that we have to deal with more or less what is available now at that levels. But the question is how we deal with that amount of money at the European level, and that to use that efficiently and to get out of each euro the most. That's the critical thing.
There we have here, mainly the message, I think, is getting the citizens back on board for Europe, and the budget is a big instrument. I have to close the session here. I'm sorry, no more questions possible. I first want to ask you to give an enormous round of applause to our panel. And for the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you that buses will take you to the TATRA Summit cocktail, if you're allowed to go. There will be a cocktail party. We'll be outside the front of the hotel in 45 minutes at 19:45, 7:45. And the first session tomorrow, be here 9 a.m. Don't come 9 a.m. 01. It's 9 a.m. Okay, this is very clearly written here, and I have to follow the paper. So, all the best. Enjoy the cocktail, enjoy the summit, and thank you for coming. Thanks to everybody.
Innovating driving has always been our passion. It keeps us moving forward